Well, we've reached week 8, which I guess denotes the midway point of the longest season ever. And welcome into a new episode of the Zero Technique Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Stern. Joined with me, as always, is Derek Mountain. How you doing tonight, Derek?
I'm doing good. A little off script tonight going on Thursday, but I like it. Just a football overload tonight. I love it.
Yeah, I unfortunately had some health issues. Ended up in the hospital for a couple days. And then yesterday was also my birthday, and between everything going on, I just wasn't ready to record yesterday. So we pushed it back a day. Thank you to Randy.
Yeah. It is good that you are okay. That is the important part.
Yeah, it was definitely scary times, and being in the hospital in these crazy days is just it's not that it was ever fun to begin with, but it's just extra nerve-wracking. And I was glad to get out of there and be given a clean bill of health. So the one thing that it did allow me to do was watch football while laying down in a hotel room, a hospital room. Unfortunately, I was stuck with only CBS, Fox, and so having to watch. Although 4:00 here in the New York area, we were allowed 2 games. So we did get the Tampa, Las Vegas game, and also the New England San Francisco game. But both of those games were, I guess the Tampa.
It was good till the beginning of the 4th. Yeah.
Yeah, but the New England, the New England San Francisco game was just. I mean, that was over from the beginning, and I know we talked about it last week. I had said that maybe it was too early to crown Cam. Maybe it was, and the big question was who needed who more. Was it Bill that needed Tom more, or was it Tom that needed Bill more? And everything that we've seen so far, it looks like Bill was riding a little bit more of Tom's coattails than we really gave Tom credit for.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we will get into so since we are doing this right before Thursday Night Football begins, we'll do a quick breakdown of that. Then we will get into our a little news segment. We'll talk a little bit about the trade deadline that is coming up this Tuesday. And I don't think anything else is going on this Tuesday. So everyone should be focused solely on the NFL trade deadline.
Twitter will be a mess Sunday.
Oh my God! Yeah, it's amazing. As crazy as the NFL news gets, it's going to be swept so far under the rug that day, and it's going to make for, I guess, bigger news on Thursday and Friday, because that's when people are going to start to actually hear about some of the trades, right? That actually happened. And especially that if anyone does get traded that day, I don't think the time period will allow them to actually play with their current team that week. Yep. That was one of the reasons why we actually saw the Ravens acquire Yannick Ngakoue on their bye week, so that they had an extended period to get him involved, and he didn't miss any games. So, we'll get into a little bit of trade deadline. Then our week 7 takeaways, what we're looking forward to in week 8, and our week 8 picks. So we do have a Thursday night football game that's about to begin. We've got the Carolina Panthers hosting the Atlanta Falcons, and the Falcons just can't even get out of their own way now. They're even now when they're scoring touchdowns, it's causing them to lose games. Todd Gurley, watching his press conference after the game, he was even confused about what he should or shouldn't have done after the game. If you did you see any of that?
I didn't, but you could just see the reaction too. And he obviously tried to stop his progress moving forward. And it's just hilarious seeing the Lions players obviously let him go through, and they're like, yeah, he scored, touchdown. Like, we're getting the ball back. It was just a really weird sequence, and it is amazing how many different ways the Falcons have found to lose in different fashion in the end of the game.
Yeah, it reminded me of Super Bowl 46. The Giants they were trailing by
Bradshaw. That's right.
By 2. Yeah, they were trailing by 2, so they only needed a field goal to win, and they were trying to run out the clock, and they hand the ball off to Ahmad Bradshaw, and I don't think he was expecting the Patriots to just part the Red Sea and let him go into the end zone, and he tried to stop himself, and he fell butt first into the end zone. It was one of those, what am I supposed to do kind of moments. But we saw that with Todd Gurley, and unfortunately his touchdown allowed
It was really weird because, it's the Lions. They figure out ways to lose better than anyone over the past 10 years. And like week 1, you see the DeAndre Swift drop. Yeah, I was going to say forever, honestly.
A lot longer than that.
Yeah. And when they started the drive and TJ Hawkinson had stayed in bounds, he fought for an extra 2 yards. He ran the sideline and he doesn't go out of bounds. And you're like, oh my God, the Lions are going to lose off that. Like, this is unbelievable. But Stafford figured out a way. Like, they did it. It was pretty remarkable by them.
Yeah. And that, again, I was really big on Stafford, and really that drive gave him the yardage and the touchdown necessary for him to at least make up for what was a down game, considering what most quarterbacks do against the Falcons in terms of fantasy. He was able to salvage with that last drive. We have the Falcons taking on the Panthers, and the Panthers, even though they lost last week, I think that they came away from the game feeling more accomplished than the Falcons did after their loss. They went back and forth in New Orleans, and they only lost by 3 to a really tough team. And I think that was a game that they could say, you know what, we held it in with one of the better teams in the league, and this is now a building block. Remember, the Panthers were a team that a lot of people at the beginning of the season were saying that they were going to be in the Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes. They used all of their capital in last year in the 2020 draft on defense to set up what was going to come in 2021. And I mean, they've taken themselves right out of that discussion, because they're going to end up being somewhere between a 6 to 8 win team. And so if they want any of those big 3 quarterbacks, it's now going to cost them extra assets. But this defense has played a lot better than a lot of people would give credit for, especially because of how young they are.
Yeah, I wasn't on the take that they were going to be in the Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes, but I for sure thought they'd be a top 5 pick just because of Matt Rule's history at Temple and Baylor. Right. Year 1, it was about building the culture, and college and pro are much different, and he's proving that this year. But year 1, record never really showed it. But after that year 2, year 3 jump was evident in every stop that Matt Rule made. And I thought it would be something similar, because we had talked about the first 2 weeks. They lose to the Raiders and the Bucs. They give up a lot of points, but they're competitive. And now they're 2 good teams. The Bucs are very good. The Raiders are good. So hindsight's 20/20. But at the time, this defense is too young, blah, 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 the whole 9 yards. But then, I mean, they've improved dramatically. And Teddy Bridgewater is playing the best football of his career.
Yep.
And they're a fun team to watch, but Joe Brady will not be there long. I think he is a very viable head coaching candidate going into next year.
Yep, absolutely. And you look at with the offseason, you brought up Teddy Bridgewater. a lot of people were questioning, why are you giving Teddy Bridgewater a 3-year contract? You know that you're going to try and look to move on at the end of the year. There's going to be viable options in the draft that Matt Rule is used to having, just coming from the college ranks. And now, again, I said they've taken themselves out of that first-round quarterback grouping. But maybe it's not so bad because now they can address other needs, because they don't need to replace Teddy Bridgewater right now the way that he's playing.
Absolutely not. And they have two dynamic receivers. Robbie Anderson, we talk about Adam Gase almost every week, and Robbie Anderson is another example. This guy looks like a wide receiver one. And DJ Moore, I mean, everybody was expecting him to explode, but last week he had the long touchdown. That's as good as a 1-2 punch as it gets. They have even played with Christian McCaffrey. He's not supposed to play tonight, but they get McCaffrey back. And this offense is sustained without him. Hopefully they figure out a way to still spread that wealth with him, because it almost seemed like they were forcing the ball to him a little too much and being a little bit predictable first 2 games. But this is a really young and exciting team.
Yeah, and even when McCaffrey comes back, I don't think they're going to just phase Mike Davis out of the game plan.
Definitely.
We saw before the injury, McCaffrey was getting like 95% of snaps. And while I don't think it's not going to be near that, I still think they're going to heavily utilize him. But if that goes down to 75 to 80, that now gives Mike Davis 20 to 25% of the snaps. And I think that he's going to be one of those guys that is going to benefit from having those fresh legs in the fourth quarter and be like almost like what the Packers want with AJ Dillon.
Yes.
Have him be that guy.
The Browns, before Chubb got hurt, they just ran Kareem Hunt with fresh legs in the fourth quarter of the first few games.
Yeah, so Mike Davis isn't going to go away once Christian McCaffrey comes back. But we're spending a whole lot of time on the Panthers, and I'm going to pick the Falcons. Because I think this is going to be an entertaining game, not necessarily a good game. It should be entertaining, because I think there's going to be a lot of points put up. You talked about Robbie Anderson, and I think not enough of us looked at his history with Matt Rule, going back to his days at Temple, and not realizing how much he would actually be involved in the game plan. Everyone just automatically assumed that DJ Moore was going to just continue being the number one, and Robbie Williams would find a way as a 2 or 3 with Curtis Samuel mixed in there. But Robbie Anderson is their number one receiver.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very entertaining game. Like you said, I'm expecting a lot of points. I'm going to go with the Panthers. Now, I think the Falcons have a little more edge to them tonight, because it was Dan Quinn's last game as a head coach, and they lost. Maybe they have a little more fire tonight when they play. But I still think there are a lot of mismatches across the field when the Panthers are on offense, especially on the perimeter. We're talking about Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, but the Falcons secondary, besides Seattle and Dallas, might be the worst in football. And this D-line, I think they can really be disruptive against Matt Ryan tonight. Derek Brown's been an absolute force in the interior, and then we're seeing Yetur Gross-Matos take off his rookie year, and we already know what Brian Burns is going to be, and he's improved this year, but that dude looks like a premier pass rusher in this league.
Yeah, and next year, this has all the potential of being a top 5 defense.
Jeremy Chinn too.
Yeah, they need to find a linebacker in the middle that can be utilized in helping to stop the run, because you see that's where they really, really, really miss Luke Kuechly.
Absolutely,
Luke. The Panthers are just you can just run between the tackles on them all day long. They get after the quarterback as a pass rush unit, but they still remain one of the, if not the worst, run defense in the entire league. I think Todd Gurley is going to be extra fueled by what happened last week, and we're seeing the receiving core get healthy. Yeah, Ridley is healthy. Julio is healthy. Hayden Hurst has been one of the more consistent tight ends in the league, especially over the last month. That's why I hope you took the over, because I really do think that this is going to be a high scoring game.
Absolutely.
So let's we'll move on to a little bit of news, and the news that we're going to talk about is the upcoming trade deadline, and whether or not some teams are going to become buyers or sellers. And the one team that I've heard the most news from, and it's on both ends for some reason, is the Detroit Lions. This is a Lions team that a lot of people have written off, but they're still very much in the thick of the playoff race in the NFC. They go out and they trade for Everson Griffin from the Cowboys, who are in now there, and we'll get into the Cowboys in just a minute. But the Lions they seem like they're in buy mode, but you now hear these rumors about them shopping Kenny Golladay. And we've heard Kenny Golladay is probably going to test the free agent market this year. They're not expecting him to sign a long-term deal before free agency. And one of the teams that I've heard, and it boggles my mind as a fan of theirs, is the Giants. And only because, one, I don't see the Giants giving up draft assets. They already are going to be without either a 4th or a 5th round draft pick, depending on what they do with Leonard Williams. If they sign him before the start of the league year, then a 4th goes to the Jets. If they don't, then a 5th goes to the Jets. So they already have one draft pick that isn't there. And also, even if you get Kenny Golladay and he's what helps you get into the playoffs by winning an awful NFC East, it's still a team that's not going to do anything once they get into the playoffs. And then you're going to lose Kenny Golladay to free agency, most likely, unless he feels that what happens over the last part of the season, it was too good for him to leave. So the Lions are really head scratcher for me.
Yeah, I don't buy the sell talk from them at all. I think they reek of desperation, and that's why they're going to be in buy mode. And we saw the Everson Griffin trade, which was fine. They threw a 6th round pick for him, but Lions ownership came out this year and said it is a playoff or bust year for head coach Matt Patricia and GM Bob Quinn. These guys are going to do everything in their power to win, and they've shown that with their moves with AP and benching DeAndre Swift for the first month of the year, signing Vitae from the Eagles to an egregious contract, overpaying for certain guys. It's just, and I like the Lions, and I'm going to talk about them in what I'm looking forward to week 8. And they have some very redeeming qualities to their team, and there are some things to get excited about, but I do not see them selling their best player, and their offense has completely transformed since he's come back in week 3. So I agree. I think it would be a total head scratcher for both teams. I think the Giants have a lot of assets they could trade away that I'm curious to see what they do in the deadline and recoup a couple of those assets. But if they go after Golladay, it's going to be a top tier pick, and the Giants are going to be a nice pick. At least right now, they're positioned to be a really nice pick. So it just doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah. And now we're on to the Cowboys, and we're already starting to see them. They trade Everson Griffin. They cut Vita Vea.
Dontari Poe.
I'm sorry, Dontari Poe. That's right. And this is now a team, and I was talking about this with one of my friends. I believe that with even after all this loyalty that the front office and ownership has shown towards Dak Prescott since his injury, I think Dak Prescott has played his final game as a Cowboy, because I think they're going to be in that top 5 pick, in those top 5 picks, where they can end up with maybe not a Trevor Lawrence, but a Justin Fields or a Trey Lance. And just start handing the reins over, because Dak Prescott's going to cost them way too much if they don't do. And it's tough to come up with a long-term contract with a quarterback after he's coming off a major injury like this. So you would say, okay, well, they have the franchise tag. Franchise tag's going to cost them over $40 million next year for Dak Prescott. So I can easily see Dak Prescott hitting the free agency market next year, and where I think it's going to be the Cowboys are going to be in sell mode over the next couple of days.
It's so funny. All their offseason moves, except for 2, have absolutely been disastrous. If you look back, Clinton Dix didn't even make it to the first game. Jared McCoy tears his ACL, they cut him. Dontari Poe. Daryl Worley today, both those guys today.
Yeah.
And then the only ones you could really look back on and say they did a good job on, Aldon Smith, who was a very viable candidate to get traded before Tuesday. They could recoup some assets, and he's going to get paid. They're not going to be able to retain him in free agency. And CeeDee Lamb, I mean, they drafted the most talented guy, and they have their guy – a premier slot receiver for the next 10 years. But and like the Lions, that's going to be a week 7 takeaway for me as the Cowboys and where they go. But they're rolling out Ben DiNucci on Sunday night. It's looking like Andy Dalton still hasn't practiced. The superstar saga, the TV show-esque Cowboys that we were expecting in AT&T, the sexy team that Jerry Jones is going to throw out with the Super Bowl winning coach and Mike McCarthy, looks like a JV team right now. It's pretty unbelievable.
Now, I was talking when I was keeping in touch with my father over the course of when I was in the hospital, and I was talking with him. We were just trying to get some normality, and we were talking football, and I said, "What if the Jets want to absolutely secure Trevor Lawrence? You don't think the Cowboys would go and trade for Sam Darnold right now?"
If I was literally thinking about that today, I don't think they trade Darnold now, but I think they would recoup more assets for Darnold right now, because his value will continue to plummet. They'll secure the number 1 pick, so they'll have no reason to keep him. So a team can take advantage of them, pluck him for a 3rd or 4th round pick, whatever, come April. But if the Jets trade Darnold, they are full-blown tank mode. We're getting the first pick. And if they keep Gase, because we've said this all along, they're keeping Gase only because he loses football games better than any head coach in NFL history.
Hold on. I get to use this for the first time. Breaking news. Trevor Lawrence has tested positive for COVID-19.
Oh, no. The world's going to explode. Uh-oh.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, my God. Well, he's not in the Big Ten, so he doesn't have to sit out for 3 weeks. But
wait, hold on. So, that means he's going to miss next, not this coming Saturday, but the Saturday after, right? He would have to. I think he has to miss at least 2 weeks. I
don't know what the ACC protocol is. So who are they playing?
Notre Dame.
You know who they're going to throw out.
Yeah, I know. They've got 82 quarterbacks. Yeah, they've got 82 quarterbacks waiting in the wings.
I'm going to say, I think they'll be okay. Just give Etienne the ball, and they'll be all right. But that's intriguing.
Wow.
So if Clemson loses, do they not make the playoff, or are they going to do the Trevor Lawrence thing?
Because you got to look at Notre Dame's in the ACC this year. They're,
no, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
if Notre Dame beats them, they'll end up winning the ACC.
They're not in the championship. So,
yeah.
But then they're going to go back and say, well, we played with Lawrence, so we beat every team we played with Lawrence by 40 points, and that's going to be our guy in the playoffs. So they're going to do that. That's intriguing.
Right, but you know that Ohio State will find their way in.
No Big 12.
Yeah. And what about with Georgia? I mean, what if Georgia wins out? Alabama, oh boy, this can throw a huge curveball into
the NCAA
the college
not
football
happy.
Playoff. No, this is
they need Trevor in the college football playoff. This year more than ever too.
It really is. It's the.
He also was. I mean, him and Mac Jones are kind of the two the lead dogs in the Heisman race right now.
Yeah.
So
that's
a
my goodness.
That's a nightmare.
Oh my! What boy? This is 20. Right this there, 2020. This is 2020. Oh, jeez. The last bit of news that we'll get into is the impending return of Antonio Brown to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He has one more game that he has to sit out. He will be joining the team week 9. I know this is coach speak, but Arians came out and said that that Antonio Brown hasn't missed a step.
Ever,
after his first practice with the team. Yeah. And to be honest, it couldn't come at a better time because at least for the Buccaneers, because now we don't know how long Chris Godwin's going to miss because he now has his 3rd injury of the year.
Really glad I drafted him. Unbelievable. Dude's a Band-Aid. Unbelievable.
But what sort of impact are you expecting Antonio Brown to have on this team right away? Are you expecting him to just jump in and have games similar to the one game that we saw him with Brady in New England last year? Do you think it's less than that? Do you think it's more than that?
I actually kind of do, and the Godwin absence is going to help. But what I will say about Antonio Brown, now the off-the-field stuff is why he was a free agent this long, and you can agree or disagree with the move on a morality basis, and that is totally understandable. But as a football player, the dude was the only guy in NFL history to record 6 straight seasons of 1,400 yards. He was a 6th-round pick, walk-on at Central Michigan. He had to work for everything he got in the NFL. And there aren't too many guys in the NFL that work harder than Antonio Brown. Now, he hasn't played a game since that week 1 in the Patriots. So that's a really long time. But I'm willing to bet that Antonio Brown has kept his craft. He still works his butt off. I think that's something that no one is questioning about Antonio Brown. So if he loses his step, maybe I could see that, but he's a gamer. He's a baller. I think the guy's too good to be denied, and he has a clear avenue to play week 9 against the Saints if Chris Godwin stays sidelined.
Yeah, they're not going to run Scotty Miller out there for more snaps than Antonio Brown.
No.
and we've seen Mike Evans. If you take away his 1 or 2 yard touchdowns, has been largely ineffective this year.
Yeah, I mean, and you see it with Godwin when he is healthy, but Antonio Brown's playing style is conducive to Tom Brady, the dink and dunk intermediate routes that are all about separation and crossing routes, meshes, whips, all the 3-step
all those timing routes.
That's Tom Brady's game. That's Antonio Brown's game. He was the best route runner in football when he was playing. So the fit makes sense. And Chris Godwin's injury literally proved the Bucs right away because him and Evans have been hampered by injuries. And at the very worst, Antonio Brown proves his depth, and he has a very good chance to be their second receiver in his first game if Godwin doesn't play.
Absolutely. Week 7 takeaways. We learned a lot this past weekend.
It was the best week so far.
Yeah. Let's get into the week 7 takeaways. So we'll each do 2. So what do you got with your first one?
So I'll just piggyback off the Cowboys since we were talking about them, but I mean, doesn't get much lower for the Cowboys. I've never seen them this bad in my lifetime. I mean, they at least are always in the hunt. You make the 8-8 jokes about Jason Garrett, but at least they're interesting and they're fun to watch. Like I said, it's kind of that TV show. They're entertaining. They're like the Steinbrenner Yankees. They have a ton of personality. They had Dez, they had Jason Wynn, they had Tony Romo. Now they have Dak, Zeke, Amari Cooper, all these guys, all these big names, but it's really thin right now. It's a really bloated team. I mean, they paid you talked about Dak, and I don't know if they have the room to sign Dak, but they paid Jalen Smith, who has looked awful this year. Amari Cooper has been invisible for the past couple of weeks. Ezekiel Elliott has looked awful. DeMarcus Lawrence, who's been invisible for the better part of the year, and Tyron Smith, who has been hurt. 2 of those contracts might be justifiable in Lawrence and Smith, but the rest of them are not premier positions. And they're just completely neglecting a franchise quarterback they had in Dak. Jerry never budged the line of saying, I'm not going to pay over 35, 36 million for Dak. I'm not going to do it. When he practically played for free as a 4th-round pick for 4 years, and the guy produced as a high-level quarterback. And now it's coming back to bite him. You're hearing the leaks of the players already not believing in Mike McCarthy and Mike Nolan, that they're unprepared. They don't know what they're doing. The defensive players aren't even buying into their scheme, their 3-4 scheme that they don't fit. It's a complete disaster. That is a team of their top guys who were paid that aren't hungry and have nothing left to prove, at least in their eyes. And then it's a team without any depth. And it's unbelievable because I really thought that this Cowboys team had a chance to be different this year. But the one key cog and constant that we see in all these Cowboy teams is Jerry Jones. And he kind of gets off the hook. He kind of doesn't. It's Jason Garrett's fault. It's Mike McCarthy's fault. It's whatever. It's these players' faults. And it is, but it comes down to Jerry Jones. He makes every single important decision that team has, and it never changes. It's all about him. It's all about the entertainment. It's all about the Cowboys and their enterprise, but it's not necessarily about winning football games. And we're seeing that.
Yeah. Before before I make my remarks, I just like using that button now. Breaking news: another Atlanta Falcons secondary member just got hurt. This time, he got injured by his own player. Teddy Bridgewater throws a slant, and Keanu Neal runs into Kendall Shepard, and Kendall Shepard goes down and does not get up. So you cannot make it up with the Atlanta Falcons secondary. So I think Mike McCarthy really summed it up best when, after the John Bostic hit on Andy Dalton knocks him out, and nobody does anything about going after Bostic at all. And I know you have the COVID protocols, but there's a time where you need to protect your teammate, especially after that. That was as dirty, malicious hit as you're going to find. And
it's a perfect encapsulation of their season.
And Mike McCarthy was very vocal multiple times about how upset he was with his team, especially his offensive line, for not coming to the aid of their quarterback. And you said it's a perfect summary of the Dallas Cowboys season. My first week 7 takeaway is going to be the rebirth of Tom Brady in Tampa Bay, and we saw, especially especially in 2019, but also in 2018, Tom Brady was not necessarily taking chances downfield. Now, a lot of people were saying, well, could it just be the personnel around him, or does he not have it anymore? You take a look at what Tom Brady was doing against the Las Vegas Raiders this past weekend, and that one pass to Scotty Miller in the back left corner of the end zone
Ridiculous.
was 55 and a half yards in the air, and he dropped it in a bucket. I mean, that's the kind of pass that he was making to Randy Moss, to Danny Amendola a decade ago. This wasn't something we had seen from Tom Brady in quite some time, and you can see that he's reinvigorated. He is re-energized. You can see the passion in his face when they make a big play, and it's the same passion that you saw throughout the first 15 years of his career. And just watching it, and you can see. And I know I was one of those people who thought he's maybe a one-year starter in Tampa Bay. Then he'll either move on or he'll retire, or we'll see what goes on from there. But he's showing that he's not ready to stop playing yet.
And I think you said it very nicely. He just has something to prove this year. And we had talked about it, but he was always tied to the hip with Belichick. And now it is his show in Tampa Bay. It's funny because you have the Antonio Brown news, and Arians has the audacity to say that was a front office decision between me and Jason Licht. Tom Brady had nothing to do with it. Are you sure? Are you sure? Really? Okay, we're going to go there? Yeah, sure. Tom Brady is the only reason that Antonio Brown might be able to work in Tampa Bay. And it's just going off his performance. You hear the reports in training camp. He's throwing with more velocity than he has in 10 years, and his ability to throw down the field and outside the numbers is better than ever. And you almost roll your eyes. You're like, all right, the media's feeding into Tom. They need their little publicity stunt in Tampa Bay, but we're seeing it. And they have all these weapons in the perimeter, but it was a really scary situation in New England last year. And he really, besides the Gronk Hernandez days and the Randy Moss year, he never really had those weapons at his disposal in New England. It was always pretty bogged down. And now in Tampa Bay, we're seeing him with a full arsenal, and it is really exciting and fun to watch.
Yeah, and a lot of it goes to, he's always had a defense around him. And I think he's also comfortable with having, this Tampa defense is one of the top maybe 3 or 4 defenses in the league right now. And a lot of that has to do, they are playing great when they're on the field, but they have they have the energy that gets fed off of Tom Brady. And they also have an offense who isn't turning the ball over 2 to 3 times a game like it had been over the past couple of years under James Winston.
Touchdowns.
Right. And so this is now a team that is, to me, they're the most well-rounded, balanced team in the entire league.
Agreed. Absolutely.
All right. Your second takeaway from Week 7 was?
We got to talk about Justin Herbert. We've talked about him a little bit, but I have to. It is absolutely ridiculous what he is doing, and I get it's the Jaguars, but I really don't care because it's still just his 5th game, and what he's doing, we've literally never seen before. So let me run down through some numbers for you just to get it out of the way, because what he's doing, I've never really seen before so quickly. He's the first guy in NFL history to throw for 1,500 yards and have a passer rating over 100 in each of his first 5 starts. He has the most touchdowns of 20 yards or more down the field, and he is tied with Russell Wilson for 8, and he has played 2 less games than Russell Wilson up to this point. He has an NFL best 74% completion percentage on third down with a yards per attempt at 11.5, which leads the league. What he's doing is absolutely ridiculous. And I'll be the first one to eat my words because I love watching him play, but it is not the Herbert that we saw at Oregon. And whether that is
it's not the Herbert. It's not the Herbert we saw last year. I think this is the 2017, 2018, especially the first half of 2018. Justin Herbert that we saw that a lot of us thought that he was going to come out. Was after the 2018 season. So for the 2019 draft, a lot of people thought he was going to come out and he would have been maybe the top pick in the draft. It would have been close between him and Kyler. That's how much people thought of him after the 2018 season. So and he had a down year last year at Oregon. So,
and I think there are a few reasons for that, but I mean, we're just seeing now how important a system is, how important coaching is, play calling. I mean, they were extremely conservative in the games that I watched last year. They bogged it down more than you'd like to see, especially in the Pac-12 with a quarterback like Justin Herbert, but also his supporting cast wasn't very good. He had one skill player get drafted in his tenure at Oregon, and it was Dylan Mitchell in the 7th round for the Vikings in 2019. I mean, now you put him with Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. He hasn't had Austin Eckler for the better part of the season, but Hunter Henry at tight end. And Justin Jackson and Joshua Kelly get it done in the backfield. He does not have a good offensive line. It's a bad offensive line. He's running around half the time and he's making these plays down the field. It's absolutely ridiculous. And the thing I'm most impressed about is just his poise, his demeanor. He looks like he's playing the NFL for 10 years. And I'm really excited to see where he goes. I hope the Chargers don't ruin him. And I'm curious to see if Anthony Lynn sticks around because it looks like it's working, but they're also not winning enough football games. So I'm curious to see where his development goes.
I think the development of Justin Herbert, especially if what we've seen so far continues, is going to buy Anthony Lynn at least another year, because I think that they know that they've had injuries aplenty on the defense. Joey Bosa, as good as he is, how many times have we seen in the fourth quarter, in the last drive of a game, because they've been in plenty of games that have come down to the wire, and Joey Bosa isn't in there on that last drive because he's out of gas, he's nicked up, and so you can't count on him, who's your best defensive player. Your second best defensive player isn't going to play a snap this year. I mean, this is and Melvin Ingram came into camp late. You could tell he was not ready for the start of the season. He looked overweight, out of shape. Is finally starting to get back into the Melvin Ingram that we all recognize. So this is a team that I think, if Herbert continues to develop, he's going to buy Anthony Lynn at least one more year. And the crazy thing is that, I mean, we're seeing two of the better quarterback seasons ever. I mean, Jaro down there in Cincy, and all he's doing is he's third in the NFL in passing yards and first in the NFL in passing attempts. So they're allowing him to take control of this team and get as much experience needed for the rest of his career. So I mean, we're seeing two of the brightest stars, and now it's going to lead in perfectly to that's what I'm looking for to week 8. But my final takeaway for week 7 was we started to see the beginning of what can be one of the truly dynamic rivalries of the next, hopefully, 10 years. That Sunday night football game, I'm sitting there, laying there in my hospital bed. And at first, I was flipping between that game and the World Series. And I said, screw the World Series. This is one of the better regular season games I've watched so far. And it did not disappoint.
It's a game of the
Seattle
year, I think.
led. Oh, my God. I mean, Seattle led for basically the entire game. The first time that the Cardinals actually led was when they won the game in overtime. But just the way that the defense made the big plays on the big bad Russell Wilson, getting rookie Isaiah Simmons with the
Isaiah Simmons. We got an Isaiah Simmons show.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Goodness! I was waiting for that.
And we didn't see any sacks over the first 3.5 quarters of the game. And in the final 2 drives, when Seattle all they needed was a field goal to put the game out of reach, the Cardinals managed to get 3 sacks on him, including that enormous third down that set up the final drive. I mean, and then you have Tyler Lockett putting up 15 for 200 and 3 touchdowns.
Third time in NFL history, someone got at least 15 catches, at least 200 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Third time in NFL history.
Yeah, and we also saw an NFL first. It was the first time in NFL history that both quarterbacks threw for 300 and ran for 50. It was the first. I mean, it was just.
It was awesome.
It was so fun. That was. I mean, I'm sitting there, I'm laying there, and I'm feeling like absolute dog crap. And that game made me feel better than I should have felt. I mean, that was so fun to watch.
Yeah, and you hit it right on the head. Both those quarterbacks are. I mean. And Russell Wilson's not young anymore, but he's still going to play. He still looks like he's going to play for another 7-8 years at least. He's already said he wants to do the Tom Brady thing, which good luck the rest of the league if he does that. But
yeah, I mean, it is hard. It is hard to believe that Russell Wilson was drafted 8 years ago now.
Unbelievable. And I mean, Kyler Murray's taken off this year. And we're seeing right before us. But how many young quarterbacks would you really take over him right now? And he's obviously not the prototype, but that dude is unbelievable.
Yeah.
He can do it all. He's on pace to be the first guy ever to throw for over 4,000 and run for over 1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, he very well might not win the MVP. Russell Wilson will.
Yeah. The two of them together they may end up. I think it's very well likely, especially in fantasy, they're number 1 and number 2 when all is said and done at the end of the year, just because of the consistency in terms of the ground yards that they put up, the floor that they have. I mean, they're so fun to watch. All right. Let's look ahead quickly to week 8. 2 things we are looking for from week 8. What you got?
All right, so I'll piggyback off the Lions, just what we talked about in the beginning of the show. But they're 3-3. They've won 3 of their last 4. 1 being the Cardinals. They beat the Falcons in very interesting fashion, but nevertheless, they're 3-3. DeAndre Swift finally being unleashed. He's had 4 touchdowns the past 3 weeks. We're seeing this offense take off with Kenny Golladay. They have the Colts this week. This is going to be a huge game for them. Very telling. They already beat the Cardinals. They beat the Colts. The next 5 weeks after that, they go at Minnesota and then they're at home against Washington, at Carolina versus Houston, and at Chicago. 5 very winnable games. How they go the next 6 games could be very indicative of where they fall in the wild card race. The playoffs has expanded 7 teams, but the NFC is absolutely brutal. I think for sure you see the second place NFC South team get a wild card spot, either the Saints or the Buccaneers. You're going to have at least one NFC West team in there. The Lions at best can hope for the 7th seed. But I mean, right now it's looking like 2. But their best hope is that they beat each other up, and the Lions have to get at least 10 wins. Have to, if they want to get that 7 wildcard spot. And if not, they're cleaning house. They're getting rid of Patricia. They're getting rid of Quinn. It's a playoff or bust year. So this is something to keep an eye on. And I think the Colts Lions game should be a really good football game.
Yeah, the Colts are coming off their bye and coming off a real brutal loss in Week 6 to was that
they snuck by Cincy. They snuck by Cincy.
Oh, that's right.
And then they lost. They got smoked by Cleveland the week before.
Cleveland. I thought Cleveland was the Week 6 game. The Cincy game, they were down 21-0. And they were able to manage to come back against a really bad defense. This is a team that, and I think a lot of people look at the Indianapolis Colts defense and say that this is one of the better units in the league. And, they very may well could be, but you have to look at the quarterbacks that they've played. And it's not a who's who of names that you'd like to line up at the top of your at the front of your program. There's no Russell Wilsons. There's no Kyler Murrays. There's a lot of Gardner Minshews and Joe Burrows and Baker Mayfield pre-5 TD. This is a team that I don't think is overrated. But I heard this word overinflated. Maybe they're given a little bit too much credit for what they've done based on the competition they've played.
And something feels off about that offense too. I really, you and me both thought that running attack was going to be special, and something just feels off.
Yeah. Well, here's a sneak peek for the fantasy show this week. I love Jonathan Taylor this week. And you're not taking him from me. He's mine.
I'll find someone else.
But, well, I mean, the thing is, it's Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers is just, he's lost more than a step. He looks... I think he still thinks he has the Chargers offensive line in front of him because he looks way too jumpy in the pocket when he doesn't need to be. He's got a really good offensive line, and this is a team that should be much better than they are right now. That's going to be a real interesting game to see how the Lions are able to build off of that win against Atlanta last week. My first thing that I'm looking forward to is Tua Tagovailoa going to show that Miami made the right move by inserting him as the starter. It's again, we had mentioned this a lot. I think it was last week. That right now was a weird time to go to Tua because of the fact that they are coming off of 3 straight wins. And now you're inserting him against Aaron Donald and the rest of the Rams defense and I know a lot of defenses have shut down the Chicago Bears, but I mean, they're second in points against. That was as dominant a performance by a defense as we've seen in the league this year. I mean, Aaron, I love the plays where they are able to isolate Aaron Donald. Now, there was one play that Donald was lined up on the left side, and the great thing about the Rams defensive line is you never know where anybody's going to play on a specific down. They intermingle. They play all sides. Everyone plays inside. Everyone plays outside. They're very tough to scheme against. But there was one play where Donald was alone on the left side of the defensive line, and they had 3 guys on the right side of the line. And they showed 3 offensive linemen shift to slide protection to Aaron Donald's side, leaving 3-on-2 on the other side. And that was the play that Nick Foles should have had a 95-yard touchdown to Mooney.
Awful.
But oh my God, he overthrows a wide open receiver, and what a route that was! That
Mooney's
stutter
really
and go.
good. Mooney's good.
He is. That stutter and go that he had Jalen Ramsey eating out of his jock strap, and he's all alone, and Nick Foles overthrows him by 10 yards. But that just goes to show you that what an impact. Even if Aaron Donald isn't the one getting to the quarterback, he's the one that's opening up spots for other players on that defense to get to the quarterback. And now Tua has to deal with that. So we'll see if they're able to. I mean, the good news for Tua is that he will be playing at home. It really matters nowadays, but in Miami, he's going to have some fan support there. In Florida, they are allowing fans in to the stadium. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Tua. So that's one thing I'm looking for.
Yeah, and the thing I'm just a little scared about is they have 3 rookie offensive linemen. They've all played well, but that's a scary task for Tua.
Yep. All right. So, what is your the second thing you are looking for out of week 8?
It's Cam Newton. You talked about him last week, and it's really not looking good. He has not thrown for over 162 yards since week 2. He's regressed every single week, leading to the culmination of the San Fran game where he was out of sorts. He didn't even reach 100 yards, threw 3 picks. 2 of them were really bad. And now Julian Edelman's out this week and until further notice, getting knee surgery.
Yeah.
And Julian Edelman's a shell of his former self. He can't be the number 1 option of any offense anymore. He leads the league in drops, and he's as reliable as they come. But the wide receivers that New England's rolling out this week, I think N'Keal Harry's questionable, Damiere Byrd, and Jacoby Myers. The Patriots have lacked a viable tight end for 2 years now. The run game is effective, but Cam's only had 1 rushing touchdown in the past 3 games. So what we thought was always going to be there, that rushing attack, that rushing presence from Cam is now disappearing in front of us. And this year always felt like a feel-out year for Cam. They have $70 million in cap space going to 2021 free agency. They had 8 opt-outs, and they had 13 players leave altogether, including free agency for the Patriots. So the culmination of that and Tom Brady leaving is obviously monumental. So I think it would have been crazy for anyone to really expect anything of the Patriots other than maybe getting a wild card berth this year, which is still possible. If they beat the Bills this week, it's possible that they could still contend for a playoff spot. But it's not really looking that way. They're not giving any signs of that really happening. And now, if Cam doesn't work out, it's a 1-year deal. If Cam doesn't work out, what does Bill Belichick and the Patriots do for quarterback next year? It's interesting. It's something to keep an eye on.
They may end up being in the same boat the Cowboys are in. What if they?
I can see them going for a Trey Lance if they're hovering around that top 15 mark and he hangs around, or they trade up.
You also have to look. This is a team that right now only has 2 wins, and what they've shown over the past couple weeks doesn't give you a whole lot of hope that there are a lot of wins just waiting to happen. I talked about last week that this the Patriots that we all remember. This could very well be a 4 or 5 win team when all is said and done, which will put them in position to either draft one of the quarterbacks or make a move to get up to in position for one of them. And again, here we are, the Patriots. Everyone's like, oh, okay, they're finally without Brady. Yeah, well, now they're going to end up with one of those guys. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. My final thing that I'm looking forward to from Week 8 is was the Odell Beckham injury. He tore his ACL early on in Sunday's game against Cincinnati. Was the injury to Beckham a blessing in disguise for Baker Mayfield? Not for the Browns, but for Baker Mayfield. We've seen him at times try to force the ball into Beckham, more often than he should. But we saw after Beckham was injured, we saw him start to spread out the ball. 6 players had multiple catches. You saw, Jarvis Landry was what I was the 3rd best receiver for them, I think, this past week. If not, and maybe even
you want to count Harrison Bryant.
Harrison Bryant.
Exactly.
So, you have Rashard Higgins, who just went berserk, catching all 6 of his targets for 110 yards. Donovan Peoples-Jones, 3 for 56. And, that was, I don't like giving Baker Mayfield credit for anything, but the placement of that game-winning touchdown, how he placed that in to the back shoulder, how that defensive back didn't either knock it down or intercept it. It was literally the perfect trajectory. If it was off any little bit, it either goes out of bounds or it gets knocked down or intercepted. That was absolute perfect placement. And I was watching it live, and I right away I said, "Oh no, that's incomplete." And then I'm watching, I'm like, "Oh my God, that guy got his feet in." It was really the first time we had seen anything from Donovan Peoples-Jones yet this year. He was an enigma during draft season. A lot of people loved him because of his athleticism, but there was just absolutely zero production to warrant a pick higher than where he went. And sometimes you have to blame the other people around you for the production that you don't put up. And who knows? Again, maybe this is the jumping off point for players like Rashard Higgins and Donovan Peoples-Jones in an offense that can be very good, because of their ability to run the ball on any down, to get Kareem Hunt involved on any down, opens up so much for the other guys. And we need to, in order for me to say, okay, well, it's time to start trusting Baker, he needs to get it done this week.
Yeah, it's interesting off what he said about it. The quote that he had this week when asked about if he was better without Odell was, "It's really insensitive to be asking that about a guy who just tore his ACL." He had the perfect answer, but in the back of his head, I do think it is definitely a blessing in disguise. And Stefanski said, we don't write plays for Odell. We have reads and progressions in our offense, and whoever's open gets the ball, which is all well and good, but we all know that Odell is going to be the first read on every pass, on just about every pass progression in the Browns passing concepts. And Baker's always going to have that thought in the back of his head. You got to cater a little bit to Odell. You got to keep him happy. We got to keep him engaged. That's how we maximize our offense. You throw that out of the window, you very well could get rookie Baker, where he's slinging the ball around, he's full of confidence, and he's zipping the ball sideline to sideline. And some things always felt a little off. We see glimpses of it, but and unfortunately it took an injury, but once Odell exited, he completely took over that Bengals game.
Yeah. And they get a juicy matchup this week at home against the Raiders, who have been just bleeding points to quarterbacks all year long. I mean, this is the week that we need to see Mayfield establish himself and not fall back into the Baker Mayfield trap that has been the last or the previous 22 games. So this is a very important week for him. All right, let's get into our Week 8 picks. So since both of our teams are taking up the Sunday Night Football and Monday Night Football spots, we're going to pick the two most interesting games that during the Sunday afternoon slate that we have. So we're going to start off with the Pittsburgh Steelers traveling to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. And this is a game that a lot of us have had circled on our calendars for quite some time.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. It's going to be an absolute rock fight. These are two of the best defenses in football, and something looks a little bit off on each offense, respectively, but they're still putting up points. More because of competition, I would say, and other teams they played. But I do think there could be a lot of fireworks on offense from both sides. Really interested to see who takes over first place in the AFC North after this week.
Yeah, I think the one that shocks me the most is how ineffective passing the ball. I don't necessarily know how much it shocks me, because there was a reason why I was not as high on Lamar Jackson as some other people were. And yeah, what he did last year was unbelievable. But I wasn't necessarily sold that was going to be what we were going to see. I was quite certain that was maybe the ceiling for Lamar Jackson in terms of throwing the ball, and we're seeing him have some success on the ground, not quite as consistent as we saw it last year. So, but this is still two offenses that have the potential to break out at any moment, going against two defenses that are really, really freaking good.
I'll lead off with the pick. I'll go with the Ravens just because I think the Steelers are coming off an emotional high, beating the Titans in the battle of the undefeateds in Week 7. They have a hold of the 1 seed, but it's really tough to come back and beat a team of the caliber of the Ravens in back-to-back weeks when the Ravens are coming off a bye. They get that boost off the edge with Ngakoue. He's not going to be an every down guy necessarily this week, but he does give him that boost off the edge that they needed. Everything else on defense, especially from the play we're seeing with Patrick Queen in the second level, the only question mark they really had was off the edge. Matthew Judon's a nice power rusher, but he's more of a complimentary guy. Now you get that premier pass rusher in Ngakoue. This defense might be the best defense in football now if Ngakoue can get back to his Jacksonville playing days.
Yeah, I mean, what was the last thing that the Ravens needed? Oh, another pass rusher. Oh, and of course, for a quick update, the Panthers are about to take a 14-6 lead, and because everyone started him in their lineups this week, Curtis Samuel has both Carolina touchdowns.
Oh my God, unreal. Of course,
and both through the air, not on the ground. So,
oh my God.
So we have the Ravens are favored by 4 points. I think right now even as good as the Ravens are, I think it's silly that the Steelers can be getting 4 points from anyone in the NFL right now. So right, if you told me, and I can see this just as what happened with the picks that I made for the Giants Eagles game. What did I said? The Eagles would win, but the Giants would cover and take the under. So I'm going to go Baltimore to win, Pittsburgh to cover, take the under at 46.5.
I like it.
So, and then the other game that we're going to talk about is the San Francisco 49ers heading up the coast to take on the Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks are favored by 3, and the over-under is 54.
I'm really excited to see this game because San Fran's really hitting their stride.
Yep.
After that Miami game, you see how daunting their schedule is upcoming, but they've won the first 2 games in that slate against the Rams and now New England last week handling them. I think they're going to beat Seattle this week. I think it's a really nice matchup for them, actually. JaMycal Hasty looked pretty good last week, and Jerick McKinnon wasn't really used last week. And in order to preserve him, I don't think it really matters in Kyle Shanahan's zone scheme offense. He's always going to find ways to leverage, and just through his shifts and motions, he's always going to find mismatches on the defense. And that Seattle defense is very porous. I'm pretty sure Jamal Adams is still not slated to play this week, correct?
I don't think so.
That's their one saving grace to maybe in an effort to stop the run. But without him, I think San Fran runs all over them. Yes, they lost Deebo Samuel, but it really doesn't matter against the secondary. They still have Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle. So I'm going to take San Fran hitting their stride against a really, really bad defense in Seattle.
Yeah. This is one where I'll take the over. Over 54.
Yes, please.
You've got I think that the 49ers are going to be able to put up points on Seattle, no matter who it is. And the name to watch out for could be Tevin Coleman. They will be getting Tevin Coleman back this week. And we've seen loyalty from Kyle Shanahan. And we saw that last week. He hasn't had he hasn't had Jerick McKinnon for a couple years now. Just last year, Jeff Wilson gave him a couple games where he was a very integral part in them winning football games. And everyone was just assuming it was going to be a Jerick McKinnon game last week. In my Dynasty League, I actually played Jeff Wilson. Why? Because my RB1 is Saquon Barkley.
Oh my God.
My RB3. So I mean, this is a really 30-man rosters.
Oh.
Just insane. Oh. Yeah. Yeah. So there's nobody on the waiver wire.
No.
My RB3 is Myles Gaskin, who was on a bye last week. My RB4 was probably Chris Thompson. It's a PPR league, and Chris Thompson, right before the game, was placed on the COVID list. So I'm sitting there like, oh no, I need to make a decision. Who do I have? And it was between Devontae Booker and Jeff Wilson Jr. And I'm like, oh, I got to put in Jeff Wilson. And he goes out and puts up 103. And I ended up, it was because of Jeff Wilson's stat line that got me the win that week. So it was karma for some of the bad beats that I've had so far. But yeah, so I really think that the 49ers are going to be able to put up points on Seattle. And Seattle has too good of an offense to be held down all game long. I think San Fran's going to be able to do enough on defense to allow their offense to build up a decent enough lead. I think an early lead is huge in this game. Whoever gets out to the early lead, I think, because the 49ers offense is not built to come from behind. They're built to play from ahead or in a neutral game script. It's going to be tough for them to play, especially without a Deebo Samuel trying to come back by throwing the ball. So I'm also going to take San Fran. I think they can cover the 3, and I'll take the over as well. Sunday night. Whoever knew that a team 2-4-1 could be favored by 10 points? Well, that's what the Eagles are. That's what the Eagles are at home to the Dallas Cowboys. 10-point favorites. Over under set at 43. I mean, I think both of us are. This is going to be a pretty easy one to break down, as well as the next game that we talk about.
Yeah, it's Ben DiNucci and that offensive line and that Cowboys defense. They are 0-7 against the spread to start the year. The first time since that's happened since 1982 for the Cowboys. So I'll go with the Eagles, but I actually think Dallas will cover just because 10 is an astronomical number, and the Eagles can't put together 4 quarters. They are so sloppy.
Yes, they don't need to. They don't need to put. They can be up by 35 after 3. They can play 3 quarters and not play the 4th quarter.
It's Eagles Cowboys. I think it still will somehow end up being close in the end, whether it's through garbage touchdowns or what have you. But the Eagles, I'll be shocked if they lose. I'll be absolutely stunned if they lose to Ben DiNucci on Sunday night.
Yeah, I'm taking the Eagles, and I'm taking them to cover the 10 as well. The 43 is a really tough number for me because I'm going to find it difficult to envision the Cowboys scoring more than 10 points in this game.
10.
Which means
they're going to score a couple. They'll score 1 or 2 garbage scores for sure. Absolutely, it's going to be prevent defense. If the Eagles get up 2 or 3 possessions, like we're envisioning, with those receivers, something will happen. There's no way they're scoring more than 10 against the Eagles.
They just put up 3 with Andy Dalton playing 2/3 of the game against Washington. I know.
Yeah, but Washington's defense is so much better than Philly's. So much better.
But Philly's offense is so much better than Washington's.
Is it? I mean, it is, but it's not a good offense. It's not a good offense. I mean, it's going to be such a bad game. Like the Eagles are bad, and the Cowboys are probably the second worst team right now behind the Jets or in front of the Jets.
And there's another one. I mean, the have you seen the line of the Jets Chiefs game?
19.
Yeah, and
Jets
to be honest,
have to cover that, right? They have to.
That means it's 19.5. It opened at 20.5. So the money's actually been coming in so far on the Jets. But I'm looking at it this way. Do I think the Jets are going to score more than 14 points? I doubt it.
Yeah.
I doubt it. Are the Chiefs going to score less than 35 points against that Jets defense? I doubt it.
So maybe 31. Maybe that's it. They're scoring 5 times at least.
Yeah. Lay the 19.5. And to wrap it up, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming into MetLife Stadium to take on the Giants, who are going to be wearing their throwback uniforms, which means they're going to lose because the Giants never win when they wear any sort of alternate uniforms, going back to those hideous freaking red jerseys, which I couldn't stand. Oh my goodness. And now I love the 80s throwback jerseys, but they're 0-3 in them. And now they get to face maybe the best team in the NFL right now, Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. It's 11.5. It's going to be an easy Buccaneers cover the spread, and I'll take the over at 45.
We're going to see the best rush defense against the worst rush offense in the league.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Daniel Jones is going to throw the ball 45 times.
Do you think the Giants, just their running backs, take away Daniel Jones, do you think the Giants running backs run for over 30 yards?
No.
Combined?
No.
Because I'm thinking it's the Steelers, Saquon Barkley week 1 matchup for that rush.
Yeah. I mean, the crazy thing, I mean, Daniel Jones is, and it's not even close.
He's their best running back. He's their best runner.
The leading rusher on the team. And no, we had a couple, what was it, about 10 or so years ago, we had the butt fumble, and now we have the rumble stumble. Daniel Jones just ran too fast for his body to keep up.
The sniper from the top row hit him.
Oh boy! And I'm sitting in the exact chair that I'm sitting in now, watching the game, and I just started laughing. I could not believe what I was watching, just screaming at him to go, and then just watching him just evaporate into the ground. I'm like, oh my goodness.
The best part about that was the call from Joe Buck. He's gone. He's got 6. Touchdown. And you just slowly see a tire go out and then another tire go out and just stumble. And it's like, there's no way that just happened. And talk about it, perfect encapsulation of the Cowboys in that Andy Dalton play. That's a perfect encapsulation of the Giants this year. Because there is some hope. That defense has been stingy. They've gotten better week to week. They've been more competitive. But they're still 1-6.
Yeah. And they'll be 1-7 after this week. But then the schedule lightens up. You got
the NFC East, so
yeah, exactly. We 3 of our next 4 games are against each of the NFC East teams. So we're not out of it yet.
It's true.
We're 1-6
out of the NFC East. You're never out of it.
We're 1-6, and we have a better shot at making the playoffs than the New England Patriots. That right there is 2020.
Unbelievable.
All right. So that'll wrap it up for tonight's show. Thank everyone for tuning in. Make sure you tune in Sunday for BSB Sunday Morning Fantasy. Check out backsportspage.com. Derek has his power rankings going up. We've got all the archives to all the great shows. Got the Exit Velo, who just wrapped up the World Series. Fourth and Long, who is doing a great job of recapping and previewing college football. And boy, they're going to have a field day now with this Trevor Lawrence news. Got the trifecta coming at you on Saturdays. They do a great job. And of course, Randy and Bill with the Hardwood Huddle. And Randy's got Off Topic. So make sure you're checking out the archives at backsportspage.com. Follow Derek on Twitter at Derek Mountain. I'm at rstern33. The show is on Facebook and Twitter at the Zero Technique Football Podcast. And follow Backsports Page on all social media outlets at Backsports Page. So, all right, Derek, I'm making a promise. This Sunday, Sunday Morning Fantasy is going to happen. I'm not going to end up in the hospital.
All right, I like it.
All right,
that's
all right. That's my Joe Namath right there. All right, thanks everyone for tuning in, and we will catch you on Sunday for the fantasy show.
Let's go watch some football.
Absolutely.